zone, but a couple of interesting spots that I want to run through Equilab and our GTO rangefinder. So, fun stuff. Alright. Ace 4 out of first. It's very early in a tournament. We just entered it. I think it's reasonable to play at 40 big blinds out of first. Let's see here. Sorry, I have to turn this down. I can't quite hear myself over myself. So let's see. Let's just go ahead and range it just to make sure, because I was a little bit... I know I'm supposed to play all the suited aces, but I had a little bit of a question about this one. I think ace 6 is the one we don't. No, ace deuce is the one we don't. So all these are good to raise at 40 big blinds except for ace deuce. I would include ace 6 and... or I would include ace deuce and remove ace 6. But perfect GTO is that. Okay. We see two calls. Flop comes off queen 9 deuce. It shouldn't mean much. We go ahead and bet small. Don't have to bet much here. It's very early. We don't have to make clearly defined hands. Players just kind of flop a lot for no reason. We do see a call, and the turn comes off, and we go bet again. This is one of those ones where I think you just have to bet twice. We did bet small on the flop, so it's not a surprise that we got somebody to take a card off. And they can take a card off with 10-8, 6, or 10-8, 10-7, I think, folds on the turn. I don't think 10-jack folds, things like that. They could have had hands like king 10 also, and it's just getting too expensive, so just had to bet twice. Let's see, go to the next one. Pocket jacks. Open in the cutoff, get called on the button, flop the world. Trying to get 47 blinds into this pot. It's not going to be easy. So we see a check, or we check, and we see a small bet from the button. I decide to go ahead and just check raise it right here. And there's merits to doing this, and you know, there's benefits and Jesus, why can't I think? So wake up with me. There's positives and negatives to doing this. Obviously, we want to get more money in the pot, and I feel like when this player bets something here, it's not just a pure steal, because I feel like a pure steal would have bet bigger, trying to represent the jack. Obviously, we have all the jacks, so when he's not betting big and he's just doing these little flick bets, I think it's something like he could have a gut shot, he could have a second pair, you know. There's a couple little things he could have. I think check raising is good because we get value. The turn comes off a king, which is kind of a bad card for us because it's supposed to be good for our range, but it can definitely be good for our opponents. I think we get 3-bet by, you know, queen king, things like that. Ace king, obviously, but king jack is possible. He could also have hands like king 10 of hearts. So I decided to go ahead and lead, and I just lead small. We do see the call. The river comes off the ace, and I just go ahead and rip it in because it's very unlikely that there's clubs out there, and our opponent should know that. As it is in this exact scenario with the tempo of his fold, I thought he just had nothing. So I think he had something like an 8-6 or 2 hearts, and he just ended up with no pair. I was kind of hoping he had the ace of hearts, so he could kind of call me, but when I jam into him, it's kind of bad. Maybe this is one of those ones where I could have either checked, but I think the bets move, looking back, there's 36 blinds in the pot. I think if I had bet like 6 or 7 blinds, like just whatever on the end, like 6 blinds seems perfect to me. That would have enticed him to bluff us. And the only bluff really is a jam. So if he has the ace 8 of hearts and we now bet 6 big blinds, he's going to go, oh, I have the ace. He's obviously worried about that. And he's just going to jam all in. And honestly, some players do it not realizing that they're bluffing with what they believe to be the best hand. So it's the two ideas that kind of contradict themselves that make that move good. I missed an opportunity here for it. I think in the end that's the better play. I don't call this a mistake because there is a world in which he has like 2 pair here. But the ace of clubs is just so bad for this board if we're both doing what I think we're doing that I probably should have just let him bluff at us. Let's see here. King Jack of spades. Oh, why is that showing? All right. We already, spoiler. So we see a raise out of second position and a caller. I decided to go ahead and just call. I could have 3-bet, but I feel like the King Jack suited is strong enough. Plus, this player has a monster stack. This one has a bigger stack. And, you know, my average stack is not really threatening, so I think it's better off to try and get some equity here before we do anything. And plus, being in the small blind, we can represent all hands. So we see a check and we see a bet of a little bit better than half pot, or right about half pot. These bets don't really mean much to me. I think half pot bets are just auto clicks most of the time at this bind level. So we go ahead and float it, hit the jack on the turn. Player bets again, still half pot. I decided to go ahead and just ship it because I feel like my hand is vulnerable, and this is the kind of player who his half pot bets are so poorly thought out that I think he's on autopilot. So I felt like he would call me with just a range of hands that I have crushed, like even a 9 or a pair of 8s or something in his hand. As it turns out, you know, he did call, and he had the old, you know, up and down straight draw. So he was playing a hand too wide and really poorly because, you know, on the flop, you know, all he has to do is bet 2 1/4 blinds, and then I'm just gonna call it, or I'm gonna go for the check raise. Then he can play me off of it. But when the jack hits the turn, you know, he can bet bigger. He can bet 12, and then I'm gonna have to think about it. Me personally, I would probably just jam it, but I might just call it, thinking I might be up against an overpair. And when the river comes off an 8 and I check and he puts me all in, it's going to be very hard for me to call. So I think his autopilot style of betting half pot is really what kind of crushed him here, obviously. It just kind of gave up the ghost that he didn't have much. King 10 off in the blind. See an open in the cutoff. We call. Ace on the flop. Player bets micro. And I've seen this trend. It's really funny, especially players who are playing too many pots. And when the player, I want to do something here. Where is it? There we go. Well, I got to move this around, but I guess we can get this ready now. So we'll do that, and we'll do that. Sorry, I didn't have this set up ahead of time, but I just started doing this. Going true GTO, where we don't even know the players' names, because it truly doesn't matter. Lock and save layout. Okay. So when players are playing too many hands, they're making these little flick bets. Again, it's like an autopilot kind of thing. This bet is way too small. It doesn't have to even be that much bigger for it to be effective. I mean, he's at 1.76. If he bets just 2 1/4, or even less, just 2.1, it's much more believable that he has an ace. That being said, I decided to go ahead and float it because the bet is nothing. The turn goes check, check, and we go ahead and lead the river for big. This just looks like 2 pair. At least 2 pair. I mean, it can be an ace often, but I'm defending, remember. So I can have a 5, I can have an 8, I can definitely have 8, 9, I can have 6, 7. I can have all those hands, and he's defined his hand as nothing. Like, if he had bet normally on the flop and then checked the turn, he kind of defined his hand as an ace. You know, 1 pair. I don't know if I would have bluffed at this, you know, as aggressively as I did if he did that. So obviously a good move, and it works out. And this one came up quite a bit yesterday, so that's why I put it in the report. So we'll see here. Still trying to get this right. Hang on. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see their cards. Oh well. Oh well. If it comes down to it, we'll show the cards. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Queen 10 suited. Out of first position with 24 big blinds. Here's one that I wanted to show. Let's see. 24 blinds, we'll call it 25. Under the gun, raise first in. Queen 10 suited. Barely a raise right here. But honestly, in a tournament you're going to re-enter, I think it's always a raise. Or that's Queen 10 off. Oh, sorry. Here you go. Queen 10 suited. I'm so tired. Queen 10 suited, you're opening because the value of the hand is, normally you don't like playing this hand out of first position. Like if you have 60 big blinds, like look, like you'll see Queen 10 suited. Oh, it's still there. Look at that. Funny, maybe I'm too tight with it. Still there. With 80 big blinds, so you're always playing Queen 10 suited under the gun. When aren't you? Are you ever not playing it? Well, it's all in when you're at 12 big blinds, 20 big blinds. Wow. Okay, so we just learned you always play Queen 10 suited under the gun. There's no blind amount. You can play it for 10, or you can play it for 80. You can always play Queen 10 suited, which I get it. It makes sense, but the conventional wisdom was you don't want to play these kind of hands under the gun because they don't play great for one pair. I guess the offsuit version is a better example of that. So, glad I ran it. We learned something new. See a min open. Get a call on the button. It's fine. It's a gut shot, backdoor flush draw. Not much. I decided to go ahead and do a standard c-bet. I do see a float. Well, it's a call, but I don't know if it's a float yet. But the player didn't 3-bet me, so he's not likely to have very many aces. So, I check the turn, and I'm doing this now to represent pot control, because if I bet the turn here properly to do a bet, I kind of run out of chips. Because on the turn, I'm going to have to bet 6.5 to 7 blinds. That only leaves me with about 12 left, maybe less. And then on the river, there's going to be 22 blinds in the pot, and my all-in is going to be for 12. So if I had like 25 left, then my jam on the river is significant. But in the end, it's going to be too easy to call me with just ace rag. So I decided to check the turn, because that's what I would do with a weakish ace, like ace jack, ace queen, something in this position. Not ace queen, ace 10, ace jack. So we check it for pot control purposes, and on the river, we just go ahead and represent the ace again. We could definitely have a king, king, queen, obviously, is supposed to open here, and the player just folds. I don't know if he had anything. He did take quite a bit of time. My feeling was he may have had a pair, which means he could have had some suited like 7, like 7-8 or something like that, and may have been thinking about hero calling me. There's not a lot of 3s in the range, and there's definitely no kings in the range that fold. So I think it was a 7. I think this is one was important to bet twice, obviously, because while Queen 10 has a chance of winning in this scenario, better off just to control the pot. All right, this is an interesting one, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so we see an open under the gun. It goes all the way around. We see a min 3-bet, and this is what screwed up the whole hand. This player had been playing, I mean, you can see it, obviously, pretty much every hand, like 50% of hands, and he had this weird pre-flop thing where he would sometimes raise properly, and sometimes he would min-click, and it was a whole thing, and I don't know what he was doing. This was the first time I saw the min-click, where it was a min-raise to 2, and he made it 3. This is something that if it was done deliberately, Dan Harrington came up with it back in the early aughts, but that's not what this guy's doing. It looks like it was just, I want the lead for no reason, and he has the big stack, so he can kind of do that, but it's kind of dumb because you have a player under the gun opening for 2 big blinds who only has 23 left. If I'm this guy with ace-queen, I'm probably going to jam it on you. But as it works out, we see the small blind call, we call. Big blind does not take the great opportunity to jam. Looking back, only because he was in first position, I didn't do it. But it would have been a great chance to 3-bet here. Because, you know, there's like 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 blinds in the pot. Like a pot size bet here for me would have been, what is that, 10, 11, 12, 14. So I think just jamming would have been the move to steal this pot pre-flop. And I think I definitely can. My only real problem is right here. This player can definitely have a pair, something like a pair of 7s or 8s. And he may decide to go ahead and call me off. Under the gun really is my issue, but as the way the hand played out, I really don't think it would have been a problem. But that's hindsight. So we flop the world, the top pair and the flush draw. I decided to go ahead and check. And the under the gun player, of course, checks because he doesn't know what he's doing. And then the 3-better checks. So this hand has just gotten all mucked up. Essentially, I think, by this player because he's too confused by this guy. I wrote it off as a misclick, that he just misclicked raise when he wanted to click fold or call, which does happen. and you get the min raise. So I wasn't really affected by it, but I assume this guy just didn't know what he was doing. So the turn comes off a 6. I decided to go ahead and bet, and I bet rather reasonably. I kind of want the action. I felt like I was the only ace out here, and if somebody had, you know, if anybody else had an ace, I would have heard about it. So really, what am I afraid of? Just sets? I don't think there's any sets out here either, unless somebody just hit the 6. So we see a call out of the first position raiser and a call over here. Now, granted, when I have the suited ace of hearts, there's not a lot of draws left. But sometimes people can have weird, wacky heart draws with us. They can have hands like, you know, that we can easily beat, like the suited ace-8 of spades or diamonds, things like that. So it's hard to say. Plus, somebody can have king-queen. That was the only thought in my head. When the king hits the river, it kind of is exhausting because it's really the only hand that beats me is like king-queen. But that should only be coming from under the gun. The suited king-queen, you know, should really only be there. So I was kind of half expecting the guy under the gun to just get it in when I checked. He goes ahead and checks. And now the player who did the min 3-betting bets 17 big blinds. And to me, this is one where a hand is either being turned into a bluff or something really strange just happened. I didn't want to call this one and be left with dust. I felt like I was checking to induce a bluff from this player. And he did do this on quite a few rivers and just got caught by just, you know, basic, reasonable nut hands. So I decided to go ahead and call it. And, you know, he shows me the king 9 offsuit. I'm fully convinced this was a bad play now. Like, I thought it was a misclick, but in all honesty, king 9 offsuit is the kind of thing that a bad player would reopen the betting with, and poorly. And this guy just had a very interesting, not interesting, but he had a very bad method of what he was doing. And he had all these chips, and I actually outlasted him in the tournament. And 9 blinds left. And at this point in the tournament, he has 127. He actually went out before me. So, I mean, I guess I could have clearly defined the hand better with a turn bet, but I think if I just make the turn bet bigger, honestly, I think we just get it all in on the river, and I've just lost. But I checked there to get bluffed at, so I think it's fine. All right, we see a raise out of first, just a jamming for 9. Oh yeah, this is why I did this one. So the jam here is 925. I have 26. We see a call here for 823. So the question here is, do I call this or let it go? And I just kind of wanted to do the math on this one on stream. So I just wanted to show it off. Let's see here. Get to my keypad. So 9.25 plus 8.23 plus 2 for the blinds antes on my small blind means 1948, and it cost me 925. So no, right, so plus 9.25 equals 2837 on a 925 call. So wait a minute, clear 2873. 925 divided by 2873. So we need 32% equity. I know I could have just looked here, but I want to show you guys how to calculate it. So this is one where I wanted to do equilag, bring up the reasonable ranges. Under the gun with 10 big blinds, what do you jam? That's really the question. Because the other player, it's just kind of a bonus. We really don't care what he has. It just kind of is a making our odds better. So with 10 big blinds under the gun, you are going to jam all in with all these hands in the like rust color here. So let's go ahead and look at those. So we're going to go ahead and put those in. We're going to construct the range. It's all these in here. Ace 5, Ace 4 suited. Da, da, da. All the way down to King 9. We can go right through. Alright, not include the queens? Okay. I mean, I guess it makes sense because you want the action, right? Queen 10, Jack 9, Jack 9, Jack Jack, Ace Jack, Ace 10, and then what is it? All the pairs down to 4s? Yeah. Okay. So that's the range we're up against. We can go further and say if you're on the button with 10 big blinds, what do you call with all in versus the all in from the other person's position of no, wait a minute. So wait a minute. It was versus an all in, other person's position under the gun with 10 big blinds. It's all these hands. It's the same range, just a little bit tighter, down to 5s over here. I might as well put it in. Let's have fun with it. So it's obviously all the way down to Ace 9 suited. These, not that one. Here, here, and here. And then the pairs on down. It's kind of a tight range for 10 big blinds. I mean, it makes sense because it's under the gun. But I would have thought it would be... I mean, this player is at less than 10 big blinds, so I guess that makes sense. So we're going to go ahead and apply that. And then our actual hand is what we're working with, don't forget. Our actual hand in this scenario is the King of Clubs, Queen of Hearts. And this is how you run these down. And then we can actually see our equity as it calculates. And this one's going to take a minute. But you can actually see how you do in this scenario versus these other players. It's probably going to be pretty close. Maybe we're a little bit behind. Okay, so 27.61% versus these perfect GTO ranges. That's if they're perfect. And you can see it's close, and players aren't perfect in game. So I was taking this one because I was like, you know what? I think the ranges look more like this. There we go. I think the range of the button player is something more like this. Now let's look at it. And this is the kind of thing you can actually do all day long. When you speculate on the hands. I mean, I obviously know what the hands are, the hands over, you know. So it's close. 29-32. If I loosen up the under the guns range, obviously it's going to get there. Let's not go through that again. So I think this is one where the call is kind of close. But I like it because I'm basically saying the under the guns range versus mine. So if we take out this player and then evaluate it, we're 43%. And like I said, this is just a bonus over here. It kind of doesn't matter what he has. It kind of just makes our call easier. So we're supposed to call versus this under the gun jam. And when this player goes, it just kind of adds extra to the pot. In the real world, it makes it less likely that we win the hand, but it also gives us a better price, so it kind of evens out. So, and we go ahead and get the money in. And what were the hands? 6-6 and Ace-9 offsuit. Reasonable, you know, and I think if you want to see that one exactly, let's see here. I guess we can close that. Let's clear this out, clear this out. So versus the exact hands of, what was it, the 9 of diamonds, Ace of spades, and the 6 of spades, 6 of clubs. We actually are kind of a favorite here. How do you like that? With King Queen, we're actually the favorite. So in the real world, we made the perfect call. But it's just knowing the ranges, and that's how you figure them out through Equilab later. And I just wanted to kind of demonstrate that. Hey, what's up, Schwartz? How you doing, my man? So I kind of got lost playing with Equilab there. I haven't checked in on the chat in a minute. But yeah, this is how you figure these things out and you feel confident in game. Somebody asked me something like, "How do you know this shit?" And it's like, you just do this stuff thousands of times, like literally sitting there with Equilab. And I have versions of this on my phone, and I've been out, you know, just doing whatever, and I'll just have my phone where I'm just running plausible scenarios. And it's great to know push fold and stuff like that, but you also got to know call. You know what I'm saying? Like if there's push fold charts, but there's not really call charts, which you kind of have to construct those on your own in your own head. So, oh, wait a minute. I went too far. All right, there we go. Ace-6. Let's start getting through these. So we see limp in the small blind. I decided to go ahead and just check it. Any other ace I think I'm raising, but the ace-6 is just such trash. This is a fun hand. So we flop the most equity with no hand. The player bets one big blind. I thought about raising here, but then again, this is one of those scenarios where if he has a jack, even if he has a hand like 5-6, he might just spaz out and put all the money in. If I make it 3 big blinds, he might just go for the whole 30 pack or even make it 10. And in that case, I like really don't like it because then I have to hit my card to win, and I hate that scenario. So rather than getting bet off the hand, I decided to go ahead and just call. We make the nuts on the turn, which is awesome. He checks now, which to me is more telling than anything. I feel like he should continue betting with all paired hands. So that means he doesn't have a pair. That means he has either a flush or nothing. So when we have the nuts, if it's a matter of winning something versus a good hand that we beat or winning nothing, let's just go ahead and bet and end the hand right now if that's the case. And I make the dumb bet of 50% pot. He does just call. The river comes off. Now we're blind versus blind, mind you, in a limped pot. This is the thing to remember. The river comes off and he checks. I decide to go ahead and bet half pot again. The player ends up check raising me on the river, and this is about as good a scenario as it gets. There's only really one hand that beats us, and that's got to have the 6 of diamonds in it, so it's either 6 deuce or 6 7. Obviously, I think the 6 deuce versus this exact player does not even call pre-flop, so there's literally one hand in the deck that beats us. So I kind of took a few extra seconds just to acknowledge that. I was never folding, and then I decided to jam all the chips in, and the player did call, and he showed us the king of diamonds second nuts. And this is one of those things where I think he really overestimated the strength of his hand, blind versus blind, because what am I continuing with, right? All pairs and diamond draws, right? Or all pairs and 2 diamonds, let's say. The ace of diamonds obviously continues. It comes off on the turn. What am I actually betting now? Like, my bet here was meant to look weak. And just like, you know, you don't have anything, so I'm going to go ahead and bet. But what am I really betting here with? Should be a pair, right? So his just call, the check on the river is the ridiculous part, because I think what he was going for is there's a flush on the board, and it's a free, I'm thinking it's a free bluff. This is not like there being a straight on board. A flush on board is very easy to see. So when I bet half pot, it just looks like a weak bluff, which is what I was going for. And he does check raise us now with the kings. I don't know why you don't just jam all in. If you're going to call anyway, if I jam, why not just jam all in, right? Because do you really want a showdown here with the king 8? Like, maybe you look cool when you beat me, but that's going to be very rare that I'm going to call. And if you don't expect me to call anyway, without the nuts, why don't you just jam? Like, I don't see the point here. The only point of making this bet is that when I jam against you, you can fold. But you have to have the discipline to fold for 10 more blinds into this, you know, 50 blind pot with the second nuts. And I don't think you do that at this level. So, yeah, that was a fun one. And I think it played out, obviously, just because of the betting I did. I think it played out for max value. This guy shouldn't have lost this much. So let's see here. We go king 10 under the gun with 58 blinds or whatever. We see a 3-bet. We do call it. Suited hand, pretty strong. We get the open ender there. We check it. Player bets 5 big blinds, 1/3 pot. That's fine. It's a standard bet. He doesn't really cap his range, but then again, neither have I. So we just call, and there's the deuce on the turn. We check, he bets 10 big blinds. Now, this turn bet, if he bets correctly about 20 blinds, somewhere in the 19 to 22 blind area, I'm just going to fold. I'm not going to draw. But he bets 10, and I have to have 23% equity. I actually have 8 outs for just the straights. That's 16%. My 3 overcards are good. Plus, the top end of the straight makes me the mortal nuts. So, this is just never a fold here. He just did not bet enough. So, I go ahead and call, and of course, we make the straight. And this is my favorite part. I just jam all in excessively for his entire stack. This is one of those great moves that when you do it quickly enough, the player just thinks you're full of crap because now there's a 4-card straight on the board, and you wouldn't do that with a straight. That's stupid because you wouldn't get called. That's true unless you actually knew what you were doing. And then you just jam all in and you bust the guy with queens. And the fact is he never folds there, but he also doesn't bet this river very much. Because when we go check, call, check, call, check, call, or when we go, he raises us pre-flop, we call. He bets the flop, we call. He bets the turn, we call. And then the most likely scenario where we have a 10 hits the river, if we check, he's not betting another dime. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what you got to remember, is that he's still got 32 blinds and we want him. He's not betting into this one-liner straight because why would you with queens? What's going to call you here? What can call you that you can beat? Even Jack 10 just got there. Queen Jack? Is Queen Jack really going this far? I mean, you're betting with shit, but is it really going this far? So when I jam, I think bad players think this is just a total bluff because they're like, well, if you don't have a 10, you can't call. But I never do this as a bluff at this stake because it won't get through because players just call way too easily because they think they're getting bluffed. And especially when somebody has a good hand, they hate to get bluffed. So jamming right into this guy's face was just an amazing move. And I just did it immediately. As soon as the 7 hit, I was like, bang, and all in. And it's an overbet, and it was amazing. So let's see here. 5-7 offsuit. We are alone in the big blind, no small blind. We decided to go ahead and defend. It's maybe a little loose, but we have a lot of blinds. This player doesn't have too many. So I think defending is fine. Comes off 9-9 king. He bets this micro bet again. Now remember, before we saw a player with a big stack make this micro bet. Now he's doing it. This is less than a quarter of the pot. So we're going to go ahead and float that. Then we check the turn. He checks back. Again, it looks like we have a king in our pot controlling or our trapping with a 9. We bet about 2/3 pot, and the player just goes away. This player had so few chips, he should have been looking to get these chips in. Like, if he just bets the turn small, like he can bet on the turn even 3 big blinds, and I call it, on the river, if I check to him, he just jams. I can only call him with a 9 or a good king. He could have folded something here as strong as pocket jacks. If he just bets the flop normally for like 2 1/4, I just fold. But because he bet literally so small that I can't fold, he made me bluff him. 5 big blinds. See, raise and under the gun, we go ahead and call it. Super early in this tournament, we're super deep. 100 plus, 150 plus big blinds all around. And 5-way pot. And this is a fun one because I made a great mistake here. So it goes check, 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 check. The turn comes off and I hit the 5. And the player under the gun, or the first player in first position here, sorry, small blind, leads out for the full pot. Okay, here's the thing. In this scenario, there's quite a few hands that he's going to do this with. All 2 pairs. Ace, Jack, Jack 10, Ace 10. All those are not going to 3-bet pre-flop from the small blind facing all these players with this stack depth. Like if it was later and we were all at 40 big blinds, Ace, Jack's going to 3-bet all day. But no way, man. Pocket 10s, I think, would be one of the 3-bet hands. So would Jacks and Aces pre-flop. So to me, this is a ton of 2 pairs that are now protecting their hand against this crazy draw-heavy board. And also, King-Queen can do this. If you don't really... If you're kind of, like, super scared, King-Queen can do this too. Because King-Queen doesn't get drawn out on nearly as much as 2-pair here. It gets drawn out on by a lot of the same things, the flush draws, but you don't have to worry about the straight draws now. So I don't think I'm betting the full pot here, even at my worst years ago, because you just kill your action. There's no point. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have the nuts, and especially if you have like the king or queen of clubs or diamonds. You know what I'm saying? Just one of those. I think you can just bet a lot smaller. You can bet 9 big blinds here and get raised, and get it in. That being said, I really felt like I was up against 2 pair. And 2 pair will absolutely call you when you do this. So I jammed 153 blinds into a 27 big blind pot. And you're saying the only thing that calls you here is the nuts. That's absolutely not true. Ace Jack, Ace 10, Jack 10 all call you here. And there's far more combinations of those than there are just of King Queen. Plus, with all these other players in the pot, the kings and queens are gone. So I stand by this move. In this particular scenario, the player did call off for the 100 big blinds, and he did have king queen, which is good that he didn't have ace jack or ace 10, because I actually won the pot, and those hands would have beat me. But I stand by this move. This is just the rare instance where I was incorrect when I would get called. So I don't think the results on this one matter that much. I think the only way you bet big on this is if you have something you really want and you're trying to kill the pot, and you shouldn't be trying to kill the pot with king queen. You should be trying to kill the pot with 2 pair. You get raised when having 2 pair here. You should probably be folding, but players do not. Plus, we were like 3 hands into this tournament, so it was a nice little suck out. But the theory of the hand stands true. It doesn't matter what the result was. Small blind, we decided to go ahead and limp the ace 5. I'll do this sometimes. The player in the big blind had taken some beats and been kind of volatile, so I decided to go ahead and just limp it. I was planning on limp raising if he had raised, like he raises and then I get to 3-bet, but that didn't happen. So we bet 1 big blind on the pot, or on the flop. He just calls. The turn comes off. I decide to bet a little bit more, and this is a different betting structure, which is why I wanted to bring this up. Normally on the turn here in a 4.7 big blind pot, I would be betting about 3 big blinds, maybe 3.2. But because we're blind versus blind, you can kind of get away with betting smaller because it's just the 2 of you. And in a limped pot, I can have 2-pair, I can have all the straights, I can have everything. I think the only hand that bets the flop here and checks the turn is utter air or like a deuce. So like if I had the ace deuce, that might be what I would do because I have showdown value, but not much. But when I'm just bluffing, I can just look like I can have anything. So it's an interesting change on the turn there and the size of the bet. So I usually bet about 65, 70% pot. When you start streaming again, dude, those streams were lit back in the day. I started streaming 27 days ago. I know that because I do this stream every day, where we go over hand reviews from the previous day, and then the play I do at night on a different stream. So every day at noon in Las Vegas, or noontime Las Vegas, I have the Wake Up With Me stream. And this is basically me just going through my hands from the previous day, and then we'll do some hand quizzes from Jonathan Little's poker coaching site, and we'll just talk and shoot the shit or whatever. And this is kind of just the way that I wake up my brain before playing poker for the day. And yeah. So yeah, man, I've been a while. You the man, dude. Thanks, Gray Fox. Appreciate that, bro. Very appreciated. Great to see you guys, man. Yeah, I was real, I quit streaming for like 4 years, and I never stopped playing, never stopped studying. But life took a little bit of a different turn. So now we're Qui-Gon broke. And you can exclamation point commands and look up the commands and see that. Glad to see you back. Yeah, glad to see you too again, man. I remember you guys. It's amazing to me. I've seen so many people come in and say hi and, you know, hang out for the streams and all like that. I'm really amazed how much I just remember the screen names. Like, that shit was 4 years ago. And I was thinking about it last night. Like, I really didn't give people a way to interact with me when I quit Twitch. Like, when I quit streaming and quit vlogging on YouTube and all like that, I kind of cut myself off. So it's great to see people remember me. I'm kind of really surprised by it. But yeah, I got a new YouTube channel. There's a bunch of edited content there. I'm releasing a whole bunch more all the time. It's a lot of hand reviews, cut up into more cinematic ways, and whatchamacallit, all the final table cuts and funny things that happen on the stream. And I have some vlog footage that I'm going to be putting out. for one long project, but I plan on vlogging more day to day, so you guys will get to see that. Yeah, your streams were fun. Yeah, everybody says they always had fun in the streams because I was kind of.
I think it was because of me.
It was because of Courtney. She says, yeah.
Yeah, it's because of me.
Yeah, she's still around. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
That's funny.
It was.
Let's see here. Ace deuce short-handed.
What deuce?
So we open up and first, obviously, get called on the button. I don't know what hand's calling on the button here. You should probably be 3-betting a ton, but they can have some pairs. So we go 4-handed to the flop. Queen, queen, 9. I decide to go ahead and check. We all check around. Player goes ahead and checks to me again. I decide to bet small. This is an instance where, hey, what's up, Punisher? We all remember the snoring.
Fuck off.
Yeah, if you listen real close, my mic's a lot better now and the room setup's different, but if you listen real close, you can hear it on a couple of my streams.
Oh my gosh. I'm famous for my snores.
You are famous for your snores. You're like, I don't know what to compare that to.
It's part of my charm.
It's not very charming.
Fuck off. You're not very charming.
I am very charming, as a matter of
not
fact.
very charming.
I'm the Lando Calrissian of this town.
You
Fuck out of
are
here.
So not Lando Calrissian. Let's
Goddamn right I
start
am.
there. In your dreams, you're Lando.
Please. So I go ahead and bet small on the flop. This works well because we're leveraging a bigger bet because there's 4 players in the pot, and nobody should have much. So we do see a call here out of the blind. This should just be a whatchamacallit, a draw a lot, 10 jack, 2 clubs, things like that. Even 6-8, which gets there now, but you know, hands like that. I don't think there's a lot of pairs here. We decided to go ahead and make the big value bet. We would do this with a queen. We would do this with a 9. He doesn't know we would do this with a 9, but we absolutely would. And we just want to get him off of a weird pair like 7-8. You know what I'm saying? 7-8 could call there, I guess, on the turn. 7-8 of clubs. And I just didn't want that to happen where I lose to a hand that got lucky on the end. So that was the purpose of betting that. Let's see here. 6-7 off. Raise under the gun. We can defend out of the big blind. You are the Elvis Presley of Twitch poker. Okay, I'll take that. I mean, I kind of have to. And the people have spoken.
I mean, is that a good thing though?
I mean, it depends on what stage of his life you mean.
That's what I'm saying. Like, which Elvis?
If it was, anything post-Hawaii comeback, I'm not really into it. But, in Blue Hawaii days, all right.
Right,
I'm with you. I'm with you. I haven't seen those movies in so long.
I
Jesus.
watched Frankie and Richard and Frankie or some movie where he played Frankie, I think.
Oh, yeah.
All I know is you could tell that Elvis had a big pippic. Jesus Lord.
I mean, he was the pelvis, man. He wasn't shaking it around being all a little winky dinky.
I mean, but in that movie, it was like, Mom and I both were like, what? Oh, okay, now we understand. He was packing.
Frankie and Johnny, that's
Frankie
what it was.
Johnny,
Yeah.
there it is.
That was going to drive me nuts because I've seen that one a bunch of times.
Dude, we just watched it, me and Mom, and
Yeah.
it was like...
He was a gambler, so of course
oh,
I've seen it.
There's a couple dance scenes where I'm like, what the hell, Elvis? What is going on in between your legs?
I mean, you don't shake your dick around if you got a small dick. That's kind of the rule, and he was the originator of the dick shake, so...
Jesus. Like, what was packing?
So, flop comes off here, and we see this micro bet again. This is just... I'm kind of coming to the conclusion that the only reason why people are doing this is because they know that if they check, they look too weak. But this looks weaker to me than a check. A super small bet or a super big bet on this flop looks so weak, it's disgusting. Hey, what's up, Enigma? I'm doing real good, man. I'm feeling good. I'm starting to wake up now. We're like 12 hands or so into this review, and I'm like finally waking my brain up. So doing pretty good, my man.
It's so funny because you can hear the difference in your voice from the start of the stream
I mean,
to now? Like when you first started
yeah.
the stream, you're
I'm like,
so
blah,
sleepy.
blah, 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 blah. It's just Java on Quaaludes. Resoned there go Ace King, big blind. Yeah, I know. That's why it's called Wake Up With Me. That's why.
You're literally waking up as you go. I don't know if the people know that, but he
Yeah.
literally wakes up and gets on the computer.
Yeah, I mean, I wake up, I kind of feed the dogs. I take out the dogs, I feed them, get my crappy bowl of oatmeal to start my day, start having my soda, get a little caffeine in me, and then I sit down and just start reviewing hands, and it's like, and it's literally just to kickstart my brain and get me in that mindset. But I think it's fun to watch. I've watched back a couple of the streams and been like, wow, you can.
It's like you're drunk in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm just running on poker knowledge autopilot, Like there's no thought process, there's nothing. It's just like, okay, I've done this 9,000 times. Let's see why this hand's in the review, and then it's like, oh, that's okay. I made a mistake there. Let's see here. So this small bet is just super weak. I decided to float it. I don't think check raising here accomplishes much because you're going to get the embarrassment call from players where they're like, oh, I got to take a card off here. So then you're just bloating the pot. And we're just trying to win this pot. We're not trying to make it huge, right? We check the turn after the heart comes off. Reasonable to do if we had a 10, right? You got to think, what story are we telling? He checks back. The river comes off an 8. We decide to go ahead and just bet. We now do have the straight, which is nice. But I was going to bet here. If I didn't make the straight, I probably would have bet about 6 blinds, maybe 6 1/4. And that takes the pot right down as long as we're not up against exactly a 10. I don't think anybody here has a flush ever or a 4. I think we would have seen some betting on the turn. And he just does fold. And I just don't think we were going to get any value. But you could see how easy this bluff was to take off. If on the river, we bet 4 big blinds, which is way improper. It looks like a bad bluff. That's why I'm doing it, to get called. You can see how easily this is just the weakest hand ever. So, we just called. He saved some face, and we took the pot down. And 90% of the time, we're not going to make this straight. So that's good to know that we set up a scenario where the bluff works very easily. This is fun because I wanted to show this one because I got a little bit of feedback on the stream about this one. So the way you figure these out is you go to the hand range charts. Player in the big blind has 16.3 blinds. So he's the effective stack. When we're in the small blind versus that stack, what do we do with ace 7? A lot of people say you just walk it, but the truth of the matter is the effective stack being 16.3 blinds, you just do this. 15 blinds is the effective stack. My position is the small blind. Raising first in, what do I do? So you're basically saying, what do I do if I have 15 big blinds with ace 7 offsuit? What do I do? Well, it is an absolute jam all day long, 100% by perfect GTO. That's why I jam this. Because in that effective stack, we are supposed to jam. Now, you can look at it the other way and go, okay, 15 big blinds in the big blind facing an all-in. Opponent's position, small blind. What do we do? What are we calling with? We're calling with all these hands, all these pairs, all the aces down to king 3, all these hands. Versus those, we fare pretty well. I kind of want to range it. I think I am. So let's see how it does. Let's go ahead and do it. I just wanted to show this off. So it's literally all the aces. It's all the way down to king 3 suited. It's queen 8 up. It's jack 9 up. Well, why is that doing all that? Come on, don't do that. God damn it. So it's all these. It's king 3 back. It's... Why is that held down? Oh, I must be getting that. Let's see here. It was down to queen 8 suited. Jack 9. 10-10. God damn it, man. My mouse is messed up today. 10-10. And then queen 9. king 8, king 7, all the aces down, and then the rest of the pairs. So this is the range that's supposed to call us when we jam for 15 big blinds, okay? Now versus our actual hand, it was like ace 7 offsuit, right? Let's go ahead with that. Evaluate. 50-50. And this is a perfect GTO calling range. If the player calls even a little bit wider, which I could see Jack 9 or Jack 10 suited, or 10-9 suited, Jack 8 suited, I could see those hands calling. So this is a perfect way to do it because we're totally 50-50. We have to jam. And of course we got the call, and we just happened to be up against pocket jacks. This was the theme of yesterday, where I had hands that I was supposed to get, you know, to play from the small blind for a lot of it, and kept running into monsters in the big blind. This happened like 5 times yesterday, but I stand by it. I made the correct decisions. Ace 3 under the gun, easy raise. We see a call here and a 3-bet all in for not much. I decided to go ahead and rejam because I'm squeezing this player out. I'd rather just take him heads up. And this is close. It was a close decision. The player actually took a long time to fold. But obviously I'm glad to get heads up with ace 3. And player just had king jack. We definitely could have been up against a better ace over here. But I think a better ace 3-bets. So like ace queen suited or something. And it's kind of hard to call if now you're racing with ace jack when you didn't want to 3-bet it pre-flop. We might have even gotten him off something like a pair of 5s. You know what I'm saying? Up to a pair of 7s or 8s, I think, might fold. Because we're under the gun, so our position is so strong. So this is one where we leveraged our position to get heads up with this one player. And it's just an interesting little rejam that I liked a lot. King Queen, we see a raise under the gun. I decided to just call it. I feel like if it was offsuit, I should be 3-betting here a lot. But I decided to just call it because the hand is so strong. So we go to the flop 3 ways. We have queen. First player checks. We see the c-bet of 1/2 pot. Not so improper versus 2 players. It's a little under half pot, I guess. So it's not so bad because there are extra players in the pot. I decided to go ahead and call it because I feel like I'm either way ahead or way behind. I haven't really determined it yet. The turn comes off and the player just rips. And this is one where you kind of have to ask yourself, like, is he going to do this with pocket aces or kings? I mean, if he truly believes I have a flush draw, he shouldn't. If he thinks I have a flush draw here, he should just bet enough to have me put him all in. So he should bet like 8 or 9 big blinds. A bet too big for me to call, but a bet that I would jam on him with if I had something. So with king queen exactly here, if he bets 8 big blinds, only has 7 behind, I'm not calling with a flush, but I am jamming with the king queen. In which case, if he has kings or aces or ace queen, he did very well. As it stands, this didn't make as much sense to me as I thought it should. We were very deep in the tournament at this point, and this is one of those ones where I really had to figure it out, and I think I did pretty good because I called and we had the same exact hand. His open is a little off, though, and I wanted to run that. He's got 18 big blinds, and the blinds were going up next hand, but let's just call it at 20. Let's see, your position is under the gun. Raise first in, king, queen off. Are you supposed to? Yeah, I guess you are. What about with 15 big blinds? Yeah. I guess I played too tightly, man, out of under the gun. I guess so. I mean, I guess that's a leak I have. Wow. Okay, I've given up way too many hands under the gun. I mean, at 80 big blinds. Yeah, you're still doing it. Look at that. All right. I'm going to have to reevaluate my under the gun range. I've been so focused on my blind play for the past like month and a half that I guess I tightened up too much under the gun. All right. Point taken. 2 big blind open in second. We see a call. We do go ahead and 3-bet. I think it's an easy 3-bet, obviously. We see a fold. The original caller, or the original raiser folds. Caller calls. This is usually a pair. He's got a ton of chips, though, so he can have anything. The overpair here, I really like it. And I feel like he can have a pair that we beat a lot, like 9s or 10s. So I go ahead and bet just 1/3 pot. I'm not too worried yet. Player does call. Turn comes off a 5. Not great for us. Obviously, he can have 7s. He can have all the sets. I kind of can't. Like, I can kind of only have one pair of hands. So I realized that, and I decided to check it back. The river comes off at 10. Now it's just the worst scenario. Like, I feel like I'm rarely winning here. There was 40 big blinds in the pot, and the opponent makes a 10 big blind bet, which means we only have to win this one 17% of the time. There are going to be times he's going to have 9s. There are times he's going to have, just baby pairs, things like that. There are times he's going to have shitty overcards. He's going to have 10 jacks sometimes and have floated the flop. So it's rare, but I definitely think it's possible that we win 17% of the time. I think actually we probably win close to 30% of the time here. In a tournament scenario that we were deeper, but because this stage of this tournament was mid-stage, I think we win close to 25, maybe 20% of the time. That being said, that's better than 1 in 5, so I do call it, and I feel like we lost the minimum here when he flopped a set. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people here go broke by betting too much on this flop, because what difference does it make here if I bet 8 big blinds, a standard C-bet, versus if I bet big, right? If I bet big here, we're heads up. What am I accomplishing? Nothing. The only time that's good for me is when my opponent has 9s, and he's going to check raise me right here if he has 9s. 9s or 10s are going to do that right now. When he has 4s, this bet just looks like a standard C-bet. He kind of doesn't want to scare me out of the pot, so he just calls. He checks the turn. I'm not an idiot, so I check it back. And then the river, he decides I'll get some kind of value, so he bets 10. And you can kind of call this with ace-king, you know what I'm saying? Because it could just look like a busted draw. Maybe you had, I don't know, some kind of backdoor flush draw or something like that. You can definitely call here with the ace-high, ace-king. So I think it's fine. I think I lost the minimum, and that's an important part of, playing good poker is not losing the most when you're beat. So that's where that's at. And that's the last hand in the report. Whew. How long did it take me? Only an hour to get through about 19 hands. That's pretty good. And I think we did it pretty thoroughly. Let's go ahead and go to the quizzes and do one of those so I can stop talking for a minute. So this is Jonathan Little's poker coaching site, pokercoaching.com. There is more content on here than you're going to get through in 5 lifetimes. And they're adding shit every goddamn day. Like, it's absolute insanity. Let's see. Like, they just added these 2 hands today. These are hand quizzes 1428 and 1429. That means there's over 1,400 of these. They just keep going. It's fucking bananas. We'll just do the most recent ones. Nice little thing here, too, is you get to see your scores. You get to see where you screwed up. You can go back and review. It's very cool. So we got a Lexi Gavin one, and I always forget this guy's name, but he's a pretty good coach. Watched his stream when I got the mail of it. Pretty nice. Oh, yeah. Jonathan Little, he's fascinating to watch because he's like GTO robot. It's crazy. It's kind of like watching Doug Polk, but for MTTs. Polk plays great MTTs, but you don't see him stream them that much. Everybody knows this heads up shit. So let's go ahead and play one of these.
Hey guys, Lexi Gavin here, and today we're going to go over a hand that I played at a 2-5 no limit cash game. So let's jump into the action here. Under the gun, player raises. He is an unknown. He raises to $15, folds to the hijack, who also calls the 15. And we are on the button with pocket 7s. What would you do? Fold, call, raise to $50, or raise to $60?
I like Lexi because she puts up a lot of common spots, like a lot of cash game common spots, and tournament common spots too. And she'll hammer them into your head. This is a call all day long. There is no reason to 3-bet here. You need to flop this.
So I think this is a good spot for a flat. You're getting a nice price to call and set mine in position. I wouldn't re-raise this. If you re-raised here, it would kind of be turning your hand into a bluff. And like I said, this is a nice hand to just flat in position and hope to hit a set. Especially, you wouldn't want to 3-bet this hand versus an under-the-gun raiser who has a pretty tight range here. So, like I said, we just give...
I mean, it seems elementary, but we're talking about 2-5. Your fundamentals are what win you money in those games. 2-5, 1-2, strong fundamentals, strong wins.
A call, and we see a pot 3 ways to the flop. Flop is ace of spades, king of hearts, 9 of clubs. Under the gun, C bets 30 into a pot of 52, and the hijack calls. What would you do here? Would you fold, call, or raise to 120?
Lexi is a very creative player. This is probably 3-bet and get shoved on with 7s, lols. Right, yeah, exactly. That's what you don't want to happen. But Lexi's a very creative player, and I think it speaks to, and I'm fascinated by watching her quizzes and a lot of female players' stuff, because the perception is so much different between the male and female brain. And this is why when you see female players who achieve a certain level of competence, like if they have the same competence as male players, you'll see the female player do better because of the different way that their brain works versus the field, which is men. And I think it suits them well if they can fall into that. You see players like, Kathy Liebert for 50 years has been amazing. But also, other players, I can't even think of too many of them off the top of my head. There's not many, but the women poker players who play at any level, once they can control that and they stop trying to compete like men, they do very well. I fold. I don't know, what she's planning here. Maybe there's a turn squeeze if we float, but I think for a 2-5 game, that's a little bit too advanced. So I'm just going to fold, man. I feel like she's going to say I'm wrong, though.
So I know this looks like
all right,
a
simple
type hand, and if you've watched my course on continuation betting, you know that I break my hands up into different classes, 4 different classes. Your Class A are your value hands, Class B are your draws, Class C are your middling hands, so those are your middle pairs and bottom pairs and things like that. And your Class D are just your garbage bricked hands. Now, I know this could look like a middling hand, but in reality, on a Ace-King-9 board, this really is kind of a Class D garbage hand. You just want to throw this away, especially when you're facing strong ranges. So the under-the-gun player, this nails his range, right? He can have all of the aces, kings, ace-king, ace-queen, king-queens, all of those hands that beat you.
This is a fun fact for if you do end up subscribing to this site. When I first started doing these quizzes, which these are just a small part of my study on here, like I'm going through now for the 3rd time, I'm going through the Tournament Masterclass, which is over 80 hours of video. And I think it took me like 120 or so hours to get through the first time, and the second time I got through it in the 80 because I already had my notes pre-made. I feel, and I'm just going to go through it again and again until I have the whole damn thing memorized. My brain does well with memorizing video things. Like I can do every line of every Star Wars movie from start to finish, no problem. If I like the thing, I can latch onto it. So it makes it easy for me now to know ranges in all positions with all stacks. I mean, there's charts in that course for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 60, and 80 big blinds in every position. And I feel like I know them to about 90%. But obviously we discovered today I don't know the under the gun that well, so I got to work on that. But what I like about Lexi is she hammers home stuff and she puts it in her quizzes, things that support her course, which was the CBET continuation class that she gave. And very interesting stuff. And I like that she just goes back and she does it. So what my original problem was with these quizzes was I was gaming the game. I was going, well, why would she just say we call pre-flop and then fold on the turn? Like, that's not a quiz. And I was trying to beat the quiz. No. The point of taking these quizzes is to answer honestly what you think the best play is. And then if you're wrong, learn why. And I don't even go back and retake the quizzes till I get the perfect scores. I leave them as, a 0 in this section or a 10 in this section or whatever throughout the hand, because it shows me things that I got wrong, and I can go back and study them more later. And I think the wrong answers, it's good to have them. It's like making notes on yourself in real time. It's just like, oh shit, I fucked that up. Why? And then you can go back to it at a later date and go, oh yeah, I do see the reason why there. And you can go over it and over and over it. You don't have to get 100% on all the scores. I know some people that have this, have the quizzes, and they like grinding the quizzes all day long, for their study, which is fine. It's not the most ideal, but it's fine. They go back and they redo the quizzes till all the scores are green, 10 points green. That doesn't teach you anything. I think you're better off having the zeros and the sixes and the fours. You know what I'm saying? You're like, oh, I got that wrong. I got to remember I got that wrong so that when it comes up in game, I don't get it wrong. So, little side note.
Ace Jack, right? And so when he's c-betting into two other players, he is definitely representing a strong hand here. And once the hijack calls, you also have to consider the range of the hijack as well. So I don't think the hijack is going to have too many ace, king, aces.
Sets. The hijack's going to have all the sets.
And set of kings type combos, because I would think that he would 3-bet pre-flop, although some people do like to flat with their strong hands, hoping to induce a raise, with the people behind still to act. But I definitely think he can have a hand like ace queen, ace jack, king queen, king jack. Maybe he flatted with ace king, even a set of nines. So with all of these, these two players who are representing a stronger range than you, and with our underpair here, I think that this just needs to be a fold. Think about it. If we called, what are we hoping happens on the turn? We're just praying if we had called here that the turn.
Big contention that I see a lot of players screw up. They don't know what's going to happen on the turn. Anytime you make a play, you got to think what happens on the next street. So if I call here, what's the ideal scenario for the turn? The ideal scenario for the turn is that I hit a 7 and somebody keeps betting and I can get all the money in and not be beat. That last part of and not be beat is the big deal, because we can definitely be up against a set of nines right here all day long. And this dude could just have kings. Like when I'm under the gun in this scenario and I have kings, I'm betting this flop because the aces are still out there. Somebody can have ace queen, they can have ace jack. You know what I'm saying? They can have all those hands. If I have a set of aces here, I'm probably not betting because it is so board locked and it's hard for somebody to have a good hand. Like what's the best hand when we have a set of aces? King, queen, or a set of nines? Kind of a long shot. But if I have a set of kings, I'm betting this flop every day versus two players because I know I'm going to get called. And then I'm probably going to check on the turn, and this player's going to bet big, and we're going to get it in set of kings versus set of nines. That's probably what's going to happen.
Turn goes check, 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 and we somehow win at showdown. But
also, you're fighting two players. Exactly. You have to think about that. Like, your position is strong, but your hand is so trash, you don't really have any bluff things here. Like, if you had 10 jack, you could actually say, well, I do have blockers to hands like ace jack, ace 10, so it's less likely that somebody has those hands. That's actually worse for you. If you have a hand like king queen here, it's kind of better for you to turn your hand into a bluff. This is a long shot in a cash game. Tournament, yes. Not great, but more so. Because you have king queen, you would be blocking ace kings and ace queens, meaning that it's less likely for them to have them, which means you could have all the ace queens, and if somebody doesn't have ace king, you could take it away. But you do have this other motherfucker over here, and you don't know really what he's doing. So just good to think out all these little things. And you can think these out in game, and they go like that. You do the work before the game so that you do this long conversation that we're having that all gets condensed down into a millisecond. That's why this is a snap fold on the turn.
In reality, there are no good turns for us other than a 7, right? And there's only 2 7s in the deck. So if there's really no good turns for us, we're up against strong ranges, I think we could just let this go and move on with our life. So we fold, and that is the end. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quiz, and I will see you next time.
Such a well thought out player. Yeah, it's like a check mark list. Exactly. It's like this hand, this betting, this position, what happened here, what happened there, ba 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 ba. Nope. Bye. Let's do the next one. And I think I have to go back and find more after that because I kind of want to do a couple more.
My friend, welcome to another.
Okay. I'm going to preface this. This coach, he does some things that are bad. I'm sorry. I know he's a good player, but I feel like he went and played lower than his normal stake. Like here we're watching him play 1-2, and he's retroactively making his moves perfect. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen on this one. I haven't seen it yet. But the other day, or last week, I was screaming at these coaches, or at these quizzes he was doing, because he was just wrong. Brad, not Brian, Brad. Yeah, this is bad Brad. I always forget the guy's name, but it's Brad something. This is the bad one. So I'm going to preface it with that. I'm going to go into this quiz clean, 6-handed at a 1-2 table, ace-10 on the button. All right, here we go.
Quiz brought to you by Coach Brad. In today's quiz, we have an ace-10 offsuit, and we're battling against a reg, a fish, and a lunatic.
I also don't like the way he classifies players. I may talk about players a certain way, like saying this guy's an idiot, worst player in the game, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's because when I play, I have a lot of contempt for players because I'm trying to beat them. But in review, I don't use terms like fish, lunatic, or whatever. I will say this guy is the spot because he might be overly aggressive. I will say this player is new. I will not call him a fish. A fish, I think, is way too derogatory, and it's got too much open to perception. So if I believe the player is just uneducated, hasn't played much poker, he's not a fish, he's new. A fish is somebody who's been playing for 30 years doing the same thing that worked in the 1980s and think they're going to win today. That's a fish. That's just a straight dumb person. I never want to count somebody as dumb because they don't know how to play poker well, because a smart player playing bad poker just doesn't have experience. So, you know, they might not be good yet. A lot of things they do might seem stupid, but to a normal person's logical brain playing this game, they're making the correct decisions, which means they are inexperienced, which means new. So I don't like the way he classifies players. A reg is such a broad term. To me, reg just means somebody who shows up every day. Like, but are you a good reg? You know what I'm saying? Are you a winning player? Are you a bad reg? You know, do you just like never learn? Like, you know what I'm saying? Good, then you're not a fish. Right, you're not new. You're not a fish. Fish was a real derogatory term. It's not like donk. Like, donk kind of describes a player who bets for no reason and just kind of leads out and does things that are kind of unorthodox to try and shake up the narrative. A donk is more descriptive than saying a fish. Like, I just don't like the terminology, personally.
Which could be the setup for a joke, but it is not. So the reg opens to 6. This reg is playing straightforward, typical reg stats.
Okay, straightforward, typical reg. That's a winning 1-2 player. If you play straightforward ABC playing 1-2, you're a winning player. You're betting your hands for value. You're 3-betting properly. That's not a reg. A reg is the guy who shows up. I would classify this as ABC. A player who gets good hands, bets them properly, gets good value, folds when he's supposed to. That's what that would be to me. This is why I would call this guy ABC.
Fish in the hijack opts to call. The cutoff folds, and before we get to the what would you do, we are at the what would you do. But before you answer it, I want to tell you about this lunatic.
Okay, this is going to be good. It doesn't matter what this lunatic does behind. I'm calling here. This is a 1-2 game. You're not going to 3-bet, even 6-handed. You're not going to 3-bet on the button and under the gun open from a ABC good player. Why? Because he has all the ace queens and ace kings. Why are we 3-betting? You know, we're trying to be in a situation where our ace can be good. If we 3-bet, get called, and flop an ace, it's probably never good. If we call, that ace is now still beating hands that raised like jacks, 10s, 9s, all those hands. So we got to put ourselves in a position to win. So I already know my answer. I don't give a shit what this guy's deal is because I have 2 other players in the pot already. The guy behind me, I actually, if he's a maniac, I want him to take that opportunity because now I save a 3-bet. Let's say I call here and the maniac 3-bets, right? And he's a maniac. He's crazy. He just does everything. And it goes back to the first position player. No matter what he does, I don't think I can continue. Because if he 4-bets, am I calling with ace-10 for this speculative bullshit? Or am I folding, or if he's calling, do I feel good about it? Playing against a maniac who's going to bet all flops into an under the gun raiser who's a good ABC player. Do I feel good about it? No. So if this guy does anything, I'm probably folding. Because if he raises, the betting being reopened is super bad for me. This player is going to call him with the good hands and 3-bet with the ones that have me crushed, like ace-king. He's going to call him with the aces and kings because he knows he's a maniac. So already I know what I'm going to do. I had that issue too. A rig can be a fish too. Exactly. There's games that I get into where I'm a fish because I just don't know them well enough, or I'm playing too high. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's a fish at some level. You know what I'm saying? I'm a killer at the levels I play at because I'm playing way below what I should be because of my bankroll right now. But if I had proper bankroll, I'd call me a good reg for the stakes I should be playing, which would be about $109 tournaments online. I'd be a good reg, and that's fine for me as I'm learning. I could make a living at that. But at the stakes I'm playing now, I'm a fucking killer because I have to play so small. You know, let's see here.
Was playing 100% of hands over their first 70 hands. They were raising 70% of them. They were 3-betting 60% of the hands that they played. So I want to put it out there that when I say lunatic, this villain is a full-blooded lunatic, not some kind of 25% lunatic. They are 100% insane. So with that said, should you fold?
I also like, there's a stark difference between when Jonathan Little describes a hand versus this guy. The dude's putting way too much of his emotion into it. This is again, I can tell this is going to be a retroactively perfect hand by this guy, and we're going to get the answers wrong in his quiz, but right in real life. Watch what happens.
Should you call? Should you 3-bet to $22? Choose your decision.
You only call here for all the reasons I just said.
Okay, I hope that you chose wisely. Your options were to fold, to call, or to 3-bet. We do not want to 3-bet here because we want to target the lunatic who's in a small blind. They're going to be...
You're targeting some person with already 2 other players in the pot. That is not the way to go about poker.
3-betting with an astonishingly high frequency. They are straight up insane. So we would not have a natural 3-bet range here. We'd be flatting with all of our hands, letting the small blind go ahead and squeeze for us. And as a side note, if you ever run into one of these players that are full-blooded lunatics...
As a side note, change your seat. Sit here. Don't sit on his fucking right. The side note is switch seats. I've had this happen live so many fucking times I can't even count. I would literally, if I realized that was what was going on, I need to move over a seat, I would look at the guy next to me, and we'd usually be talking, and I'd have a good rapport with him because he's the spot, and he's my best friend right now. I would look at him and go, hey, man, do you mind if I sit over there? My eyes are killing me. I got such a fucking headache. I don't want to leave yet, but my glasses, I can't see from here. I don't give a fuck if I was sitting right in the center of the table seeing everything. I've used the line... You know, it's just too bright right here for me. Do you mind if I sit over there? I would ask him, and then he would go, yeah, sure. And then I'd look at the dealer and go, excuse me, sir. Like, I'm playing it like a moron. I would go, excuse me, sir, do you mind if I take that seat? Is that okay? You know what I'm saying? And they go, well, you're moving into the blind. You have to post. That's fine. I don't want to upset anybody. That's fine. And I would just do it because I want to be on this guy's other side. But I would be using so much subterfuge to try and not let this guy know that I'm getting on his other side so I can fucking take every chip he's got. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I go from being like this loud, gregarious, you know, very obnoxious player to being the nicest guy in the world. I actually think of Woody Allen in my head when I talk to the dealer and I go, do you mind, sir? I don't want to cause a fuss. You know what I'm saying? I become very humble and small because now I know I don't need the big theatrics. I have this moron who's now on my right just giving me his chips, and all your winnings come from your right, not from your left. You lose to the left, you win from the right. Don't forget that.
When you flat the button here, have it planned out in your mind that you're going to be facing a 3-bet so that you...
I have it planned out in my mind that I'm going to be facing a 3-bet from this player with these other 2 players in the pot. I know that. I'm actually inclined to fold this for free on the button.
Have a strategy for flatting. If you're just going to flat, get 3-bet and then fold. You're torching your money and you may as well just fold free. So here, call.
Which is the correct answer, especially in a live game.
Gets the points. All the other decisions get 0. And now the lunatic goes ahead and sticks in.
Now this is online. Little different.
Squeeze to $32. The big blind folds. Under the gun, opponent flats. The hijack folds. And now the action is on us. Should we fold? Should we call? Or should you just rip it all in, click the button, choose your adventure?
Fold. What can you possibly hope to accomplish? Okay, what he's going to say is the right move is to jam, because this player's opening too wide and will call you too wide. But you're forgetting about this dude. This dude, he's not just getting to the table, he's there with us. He knows the same scenario. What do you think he's flatting with? Hands that he will get all this money in with. So jacks plus. So if we jam, he already has that in mind. This is a fold. I would have folded this pre-flop, honestly. With all this guy's saying, I would fold this pre-flop. I'm going to click fold. He's going to say I'm wrong. Watch how he twists his logic to say I'm wrong.
Okay, so did you choose fold? Did you choose call? Or did you choose to...
If he says all in, he's the worst fucking coach ever.
Go all in. I hope that you chose to rip it. And the rationale for ripping it here is that the under the gun...
But you don't have a strong enough hand to rip it. You need ace jack suited at a minimum. At a minimum. And honestly, I would only play this play the way he's doing it with jacks plus and ace queen suited plus. That's it. I'm not doing that with this fucking hand. It doesn't stand up good enough versus this opener's range.
I did not believe they would be flatting with the best hands in their range.
You don't think under the gun, ABC, good solid reg, is going to be flatting with the best hands in their range. You really don't think that. You really don't. 147 big blinds, exactly. Yeah, that's a great hand to get in 147 big blinds. Ace 10, great one. It's actually 150 because we already put 3 in the middle like a fucking moron.
I thought they would be 4-betting with a very high frequency.
You didn't think it. You didn't think the under the gun player would be 4-betting with a high frequency with his best hands. You hoped. You hoped. There's a difference here. Think is a logical conclusion to a hypothesis. Hope is wishing in one hand and shitting in the other.
So that they could get it heads up against the lunatic and not incentivize me and the fish to come along behind.
But if I have aces, am I really going to 4-bet versus this maniac? No. I'm going to allow him to fucking just roast himself with a range that's way too wide to be doing what he's doing in the first place. He's going to be raising all aces, even ace-5 offsuit, king-queen, all these hands that shouldn't be doing it. He's playing it like a small blind squeeze versus a late position opener and a call in the cutoff. No. You're not going to 4-bet aces. Hell no. Who's the lunatic now, though? Exactly. Oh, we're not the lunatic in this scenario. In this scenario, the coach isn't the lunatic. He's the fish. He's the fucking fish. He's the idiot.
So because I can eliminate some...
This is a retroactively perfect hand. This is a rare scenario that worked out great for the hero of this story. You ever talk to somebody and every time they tell a story, they are the victim, the hero, and the genius by the end of the story? That's what this guy's doing. That's what this guy's doing. Everything he does is perfect. And here's the thing. I'm a narcissist. I know this. All right? I'm also a bit of a sociopath. Okay? You kind of have to be a poker player. And I'm also on the spectrum. And I also have a learning disability. All these things put me together. But even I am self-aware enough to know that in this scenario, if you jam, you're the spot. You're the spot, sir.
Some of the strongest hands in our opponent's range, because I'm not incentivized to 3-bet pre-flop, and because this lunatic is, well, a lunatic, shoving felt like the best way.
Felt. It felt like it. There's a reason why getting felted is a term in poker. It means going down to the felt, losing all your money. It's also because you felt a certain way and were wrong. That's fine when telling a story, but when coaching, it's really bad. Exactly. He's not supposed to be the hero. Jonathan Little, you'll notice when he does his, there's some of them where he'll go, where I've made the answer, gotten 10 points, and then he goes, the correct answer here is to do this. Retrospectively, I realize this is the better play. In game, this is what I did. This is a mistake. So he doesn't give you full marks for doing what he did. He gives you full marks for coming up with the best answer. That's what these coaches should do in these quizzes. I can't believe this guy. You know what it is? The site's so big, and I said this before. The site is so big, and it has so much information that Jonathan Little is not watching every single quiz that gets uploaded. He has the guy do a few of them, and he looks at them, and then he goes, okay, cool, man. Put up, some every other day. And I'm sure he didn't see this. If Jonathan Little saw this, he would call this a fucking travesty.
Go about playing the rest of his hand, so we opted to just rip it in. The lunatic goes ahead and calls, and the reg does indeed make a fold.
Rare
so
instance.
We get heads up, and now for the exciting conclusion, the lunatic had 10 of diamonds and a 5 of clubs. I swear this hand actually happened. It's in my database, and I'm not showing you the run out because it's a bad beat. I'm just showing you that.
Here's the other thing. When Jonathan Little makes the correct decision, he doesn't show you the result. Because he goes, the result doesn't matter. This is the correct thing.
The dude had the 10 and the 5, so when we ripped the ace 10, even though it is a marginal hand to get in 100 big blinds in most all situations against...
In all situations. And it wasn't 100 big blinds. It was 150 big blinds. There's a big difference between 100 big blinds and 150. There is a huge... If you get in 100 big blinds playing 200 NL, it's kind of standard. It's kind of ace king versus queens. It's kind of top, versus two under cards that made two pair. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of very standard to get in 100 big blinds. You get over 120 big blinds, man, you're getting into different territory because there's supposed to be more nuance to your play. There's supposed to be more finesse to it because it is so much more money. The fact that he goes 100 big blinds, you had 150 in this hand, bro. We can go back and see it. We started with 150 blinds.
Someone who is playing like this guy in the small blind, pressure edges, force them to make bad decisions with a 10 and a 5, and then hold up once all the money gets in. Thank you for following along and participating in this quiz. Coach Brad out.
Fucking waste. Fucking waste. Like, here's the thing. He may be an excellent player. I haven't looked into him. I've been meaning to look him up and see his results. He obviously is if he's on the site, but he's coaching down. He's like doing this to get hands to put on the site. It's like he should just be playing like, and you can coach the world with higher level buy-ins that you play at normally because you're fundamentally sound poker and your logic works in those scenarios. This is not a scenario where you do this. If you were playing, 1K NL, then yes, this might be the move because of the fact of players defining themselves too much. Yeah, his name has an R too much. Right. Yeah. There's a reason why that is. So we're going to go back to the quizzes, and I want to show you something here when we hit the quizzes. Just to that little note-taking thing that I was talking about. Let's see here. Come on. Bring them up. A lot of people are using the site right now. I've noticed at this time of day in Vegas, it kind of runs a little slow. So you can see that I don't have perfect scores on all these. And I leave these in here so I can go back through them. One of them I actually have written down is this Faraz Jaka hand from a few days ago, this 6-6. I want to go through that again. But there's some of them. This is a $2,500 buy-in event, live event at Fallsview. I am not a live tournament player by any means. I've never played a buy-in bigger live than $200 in my life. One time I did, but I got staked. I did very well. But this is a tournament that this hand still made sense to me and was very logical. I got perfect scores on it because this hand goes anywhere you want to go. You know what I'm saying? It's just way too good. It's just fundamentally sound poker. So it makes sense everywhere. You don't have to play 1-2 to coach. You know what I'm saying? Let's look at a different one. Let's go to a Jonathan Little hand. Where's one that I haven't taken? I take a lot of his. So let's just look him up. This is another thing too. If you find a coach that really jives with you, that you learn a lot from, you can just put in their name and look, all his quizzes come up. I've taken a lot of his quizzes. Okay, here's a random 1K tournament with 8-4 suited. And let's take this one, and you're going to see the huge difference. The blinds are 600K, 1.2 million. We're in the small blind with 8-4 suited. This is the furthest thing in the world from 1 to no limit cash. You're going to see how much different this is right here. Check this out.
We're down to 20 people in this tournament. We have
Needs to add rating options to quizzes so he can actually check some of the really low rated ones. Ooh, that's a good idea. I like that. I'm going to email that suggestion. He has a whole staff going through his emails, but I've actually been responded to by Jonathan Little for just a question. And it's very interesting, very involved. So we're down to 20 players in this. This is the 1K Party Poker mini main 6 max. There's 20 players left.
We have the 8-4 suited in the small blind, and everyone folds to us, playing 25 big blinds. Should we fold, call, raise to 3.6 million, or go all in?
These are tough because I know that the raise would be about 3.6 million. 8-4 has enough equity to flop something good. I think personally, 25 big blinds, it's not a jam. I think personally I'm going to raise this one here a lot, although in this exact scenario I don't mind calling to keep my range wide open. So I'm going to go with call, but I think it's 50-50 for me whether or not I'd call it or raise it. I'd never fold.
So this is a hand that is just mandatory to play. I understand we're late in the tournament. We don't want to bust with the 8-4 suited, but you got to get that kind of thought process out of your head. You instead have to ask, is it profitable to play this hand? And the answer is definitely yes. The only time it would be even feasible to fold is if you know this player in the big blind is going to be just maniacally aggressive. Because then we are going to get raised very often if we raise or limp pre-flop, and we're just going to get blasted on a lot of flops that are going to force us to fold. So this is a situation where we really want to play this hand, and I think we can go either way between limping or raising. In the past, I would always limp it. I've been experimenting with raising a decent amount more since I've seen some player pool data that shows you make a little bit more money when you raise compared to limp, and that's especially true when you're playing deeper stacked. Shallower stacked, though, it starts to become a little bit more neutral, especially in scenarios like this where if I raise, so let's say 3 big blinds, we could just get jammed on, right? And then I have to fold a hand that has plenty of equity. So for that reason, I think I would prefer a limp, but raising is also fine, especially if you think your opponent's on the tighter side. You're never going to just rip it all in for 25 big blinds, so that's not a good option. We limp, big blind checks, flop comes 9-7-3. We have all the backdoor draws. Should we check, bet 1.2 million, bet 2 million, or bet 3.7 million?
I think the only way to play here is to bet range, and when we do that, we're going to bet 1/3 pot with our best made hands and draws, and with our bluffs. This kind of falls in the middle because, like, we do have all the backdoor draws, but also our range is wide open, as is our opponent's. So I think betting is good. We bet 1/3 pot. I'm happy with it all day. I don't think betting more accomplishes much because if we get called betting small, he can still have a lot of hands that we can play him off of. If we bet big and he calls us, well, we kind of need to improve, you know what I'm saying? So it's the same action, different, or it's the same result, or sorry, it's the same action he takes, different result for what it means for our hand. So betting 1.2 is perfect. That's 1/3 pot. There we go.
This is another spot where I've changed my strategy to some extent, where in the past I would always be betting on this slightly bigger side, like 2 million. And I don't have a problem with 2 million because that's going to get our opponent to react somewhat straightforwardly. The thing, though, is that if we bet 1.2 million instead, our opponent's going to call us with all sorts of junk, which is going to allow us to very easily continue betting on a lot of turns whenever we turn any equity, or perhaps even when an overcard comes. So I think we're going to have just more fold equity throughout the whole pot compared to...
Also, keeping our stack to pot ratio bigger, meaning we have more in our stack than there is in the pot. It allows us to have more streets of betting to convince this person. You'd be surprised. you could have bet 25 big blinds on this flop. You're going to get called more often than when you bet 2 on the flop, 4 on the turn, 5 on the river. Your total bet is half or less than half of what you're betting. But I'd say when you jam this flop, a 9's going to call you all day. Meanwhile, if I hammer you and bet 2, 4, 6, or even 2, 3, 6.5, whatever, you have to now call 3 different betting streets, and your head can open up to, oh, wait a minute, he can have this. Oh, wait a minute, he can have that. When you jam the flop, you've made it very simple for your opponent. You either have the best pair or you do not. That's it. It's a kill pot association. You know what I'm saying? And nobody would jam that with a really good hand. So the betting becomes simpler, even though the betting is bigger. So having more streets to bet on, I have found, is a much better way to bluff overall. You don't want to pull the trigger and have one trigger to pull. You want to have multiple guns and be like, and like, so people have to keep fucking dodging you. It's brutal when a guy keeps betting at you every step of the way.
Immediately, if we go for a small bet, I definitely would not go big. I'm not going to bet 3.7 million here, because if we do that, then when we get called, we're just in terrible shape. So you want to make sure whenever you're making any bet that you likely have either an immense amount of fold equity now, and you know how your opponent's going to play, or you're going to have some amount of fold equity on the turn in the river. And I think the small bet makes that happen best. That said, I think a medium bet's fine too. This time I do go for the medium bet, and like I said, I would prefer one big blind bet in this spot. We do get called. Turn.
See what he did? He said the best bet is 1.2 million. We got full marks for that. He bet 2 million in game. So he said the best bet was around one big blind. He bet too much, and he admitted that. Okay? But he gave us full marks because we made the correct decision. That's what I'm talking about. He's not retroactively perfect. He's not justifying his mistake. He's saying this was a mistake. You get good points. I fucked up. Now the ace hits the turn. Now you have to take into account, okay, now when you've done that 2 million bet on the flop and the ace hits the turn, now what do you do?
Is the ace of hearts. Should we check? Bet 2 million, bet 4.5 million, or bet 7 million?
Interesting. Because with the small bet on the flop, I would be betting this turn 100% of the time. That being said, the ace doesn't really belong in our hand because we did not raise pre-flop. So I think this is one where it gets a little bit more complicated. And I believe the move here is to either check and go for the river bluff or to set up the 3-barrel. Let's consider that. The hands that are going to call us here on the turn that will not fold to a 3-barrel are hands like an ace, fine, unlikely, because we didn't get raised pre-flop, or a good 9, king 9, queen 9, or 2-pair. Hands that will call us here that will fold on a river to a, bet. Draws, which will not bet here anyway. They don't want 8-9 or 8-10 doesn't want to get blown off of it. 5-6 doesn't want to get blown off of it. 6-8, unless they have the hearts, I really don't think they're betting. Right, yes, because it was a diamond, it would be a different case. Exactly. If this was the ace of diamonds, then we're betting because we have more equity. I think this hand kind of puts a stopper on the bet when this card comes off. That being said, depending on my read of the situation, I would probably bet here, and my bet would be about 4.5. As it is in-game, I'm going to check. The bet on the flop we made was improper, so I'm kind of adjusting because the bet was too big, so the pot's too big to keep betting. So I think I like checking here and then going for the bluff on the river.
This is a very nice bluff card. Because
all right.
We would definitely limp some of our aces pre-flop, especially if we're limping with a very balanced limping range. And the opponent would often raise with most of their best aces.
That's a good point. 4.5, I got the bet right, but he's exactly right. The opponent would be raising his aces, and we would have aces in our limping range that we would limp and raise, re-raise if our opponent had bet. So he's absolutely right.
So they're lacking all the good aces. So this is definitely a spot we want to continue barreling, and if I bet the turn, it's going to be about 4.5 million. Possibly go up to, what?
15
million. We'll have about 22 left, so we'll probably go for a medium river bet of about
12.
10 million on the river, which is
10.
substantial, and the goal of that is to get your opponent to fold out every hand worse than an ace by the river, which I think will happen a lot of the time. So yeah, that's almost always what I would do. I don't think you want to go huge on the turn.
I think I'm playing it too nuanced when I overthink the ace, because he's right. He's absolutely right. If I had ace king, let's just play devil's advocate. I have the ace king of spades. Okay, am I going to just open raise it in this scenario? Honestly, most of the time, no. I'm going to limp it and hope my opponent raises so I can then re-raise and we can get all the money in pre-flop. If I just raise and he just calls, then I'm kind of meh. I've kind of overdefined my hand. So in the small blind, and I've been doing a lot of study on this in the last 2 months, I really like the ace king. As a matter of fact, let's do it. I'm going to bring up the tools chart from Jonathan Little's poker coaching site. So we go to, I brought it up in another window. So now we're going to go down to the tools. And this is 25 big blinds in a tournament pre-flop chart. Okay, check this out. Blinds, 25, right? Our position is the small blind. Raising first in, ace-king suited is a raise. There are small blind versus big blind charts for small blind versus big blind. I don't know where the hell I have them, but honestly, I think this is closer to a limp raise. So let's do this. Okay, ace-king suited. Look, it's only a call here 55% of the time at 20 big blinds. We're at 22, so check this out. If we're in the small blind and we have 20 big blinds facing a raise, right, from the big blind. Now, we've just limped it in this scenario. Then the ace-king is a jam. So we'd be limping it to jam over a raise. You see what I'm saying? And even at 25 big blinds, if it's not there because we're supposed to raise it at 25 big blinds all the time. At 20, we're supposed to limp jam it, which is the absolute play. So with 22 big blinds, maybe it's a little bit ambitious to limp jam, but I still love that play because people don't see it coming. I would probably limp. The player would make it about 3.5 big blinds, and I would make it 10. At that point, I'm committed to the pot, and I'm going to try to get him to jam over me with hands that can raise that I crush, like ace-queen, ace-jack, which happens a lot, or we're going to be racing against pairs. Even king-queen will jam against you in those scenarios. So, but the limp jam is more GTO proper, but I like that way of playing it, and we did start the hand with about 25 big blinds, so we would be raising. Okay, that's fine. But our balanced limping range, let's look at it. For 25 big blinds in the small blind, raising first in, we are going to have a limping range that's going to include all these aces, right? We start raising at a greater frequency at about ace-7, but ace-6 on down, suited, yeah. And the limp raises, or the limps here, are ace-deuce all the way up to about ace-5. Ace-6 can be in there sometimes. Ace-jack limps more frequently than raises. Ace-queen limps more frequently than raises, offsuit of those, because these are hands that are good, strong one-pair hands. So we could have had this scenario where our opponent didn't take the bait, and we limped with ace-queen off, and now we've just spiked the turn, and we're monstrously ahead. So he's absolutely correct, and I kind of lost that nuance there.
7 million, because then if you get called, it may be only by ace-x, which, you know, could be fine if that's the case, although some people still call with draws, some people still call with a 9, and then you don't know if you need to be bluffing the river. When you bet smaller, you know all those hands are going to call, and a lot of those hands will fold on the river. You also don't want to go tiny, because if you go tiny, you're going to get called by all sorts of stuff, and I mean, I suppose if you go tiny, you just have to go huge on the river to try to get them to fold all that stuff, which I suppose could be viable, but I think you're just going to want to get some fold equity immediately on the turn by betting 4.5. This time I checked, though, and I hate this.
Again, he made a mistake. He says he hates it. He talked out what the proper move is after making a mistake on the previous street, so he's giving full points for the thing he didn't do.
The only time I would ever in a million years do this is if I could just look and tell the opponent loved their hand. And if they love their hand, then I suppose he should be giving up. But I would never make this play. And these hands were just from a few months ago. All right, river is a 5 of diamonds. Should we check? Bet 2 million. Bet 4.5 million. or bet 7 million.
See, now this hand is playing out the way that I was saying to play the hand. Now, I would have bet smaller on the flop, but I was going to check the turn for all the reasons I talked about. And on the river, I'm going to bet, and I'm going to bet big. Here we go.
Well, now we have almost a nut low.
So this worked out the way I would have played it in game without reads on my opponent of the bet, check, ooh, the ace is scary, bet river, I actually have something.
When you have almost a nut low, you pretty much always want to bluff. The problem, though, is that it's very easy for the opponent to have a 9 or a 7. Or 3, I suppose.
That's why you're betting
if they
big.
have a 9 or a 7, is there any way we can get them to fold? Well, if we bet huge, we'll get them to fold. Alternatively, we could also go small if we think we're going to get the opponent off of hands like king high or 10-8, right? I don't think you need to go big at all to get those hands to fold. So there certainly is merit to both a tiny bet and a big bet. However, you have to think the opponent would bet the turn with a lot of their draws. So for that reason, I think a big bet's just going to be better. And I do think we need to go 7 million if we want to have any chance of getting a 9 or a 7 to fold, which should be most of the opponent's range.
See, again, he's saying he screwed this hand up, but he's showing us the correct play.
This time I go 4.5, though, and I don't like it. I mean, this is only a good bet if you know your opponent's generally weak. And, I mean, I have no way of knowing that. It's interesting whenever I'm reviewing these hands because, like, some plays I just definitely do not like, but I understand that there could be reasons to make those plays. So I have a hard time giving those plays a bad score, but, like, I think in this scenario you definitely want to go bigger if you're going to be bluffing, or you definitely want to go smaller if you're going to be bluffing. So, like, what kind of score does this get if it's what I actually did and I see the merits for it, but I can't see the merits for it now because I don't know. I'm against a generic opponent compared to exactly who I was against. Anyway, I definitely think we need to bet bigger on the river to have any chance to get a 9 or 7 to fold. And even then, it may be hopeless. If it's just hopeless, just give up. It's okay to give up. But I usually don't give up here. When you have the nut low, you usually want to bet. And this time, they had the 9, and they probably just weren't folding.
But I do think in this scenario, when we bet the flop, check the turn, and then bet big on the river, that 7 million bet, it's kind of hard to call with a 9 here because our hand looks like 8-6 all day long. Like, it looks like a straight all day long. It can even be 4-6, believe it or not. You know, I mean, 4-6 of hearts. It can also be an ace. Like, the bet on the river is the real big killer here. So if I was to play this hand, I would have bet small on the flop, and I would have bet big on the river. I would have lost about the same amount of chips, but I would have had a much better chance to win in this exact scenario. And you can see the difference between Jonathan Little and this other coach, Brad, where he made several mistakes in this hand. He scored better scores for things he didn't do. And, yeah, I think that's the difference you see between coaches. So if you're going to get this site, man, play Jonathan Little's coaches or hand quizzes first, and then you can look at the other ones because the other ones. I mean, there's coaches you can't that have no doubts against them, like Assassinato, Matt Affleck, Faraz Jaka, Lexi Gavin, Grips. There's so many great coaches that make these hand quizzes and understand the assignment where you're looking to find the best move, not I'm the hero because I did everything right. Like, here's the thing. On Jonathan Little's quizzes, you could answer exactly what he did, and you may not score 100%. In this one, if we answer exactly as he did, we scored less on the river. We scored 5 on the river instead of 10 by doing exactly what he did in-game. That other coach, if you just guessed what he did in-game, you got perfect scores. You also learned nothing and are now playing horribly. So, big difference there in the coaching. My voice is getting a little strained. So today's probably a play day. I'm going to come back around 3:30, 4 o'clock Vegas time and play. That's about 2.5 hours, something like that. But if I don't see you, then I'll be back here at noon tomorrow where we'll do the Wake Up With Me. And Sunday is always a play day at this point. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going to send you guys off to somebody good. I haven't looked yet. And stick around for him. And have a great day, guys.